Welcome to the Supplement Engineer Podcast. My name is Robert Chinetsky. Today we are back with another Menage a Trois trifecta episode featuring my man, as always, Justin Hall of Supplement Snoop, and one of the coolest cats in the industry, Christopher Waldrum of Inspired Nutraceuticals. Welcome, gentlemen.
The podcast got a lot better looking today, that's for sure.
Dude, leveled up, introduction, leveled up. I remember when we first started, he had like this notepad and is like reading off as he's going, and it was a little bit lackluster. Improved quite a bit since then.
You guys did do a podcast together, like one of your first ones, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Chris was somewhere in the original top 10 episodes I did. So yeah, he was good for a pilot ground, and I've kind of gotten a little bit more comfortable in the podcasting role and a little bit better just kind of going off the cuff with everything. So,
Chris, how generous were you to give him time back then?
Oh, dude, he paid me back then. Now I have to pay him.
Yeah, for sure. See how that goes?
Tables have turned.
Well, Justin, if you remember, I think you were episode number 6 or something like that. You were up there in the pecking order as well, sir.
I know, man. I was like, wait. I was like, Chris Waldrum was on here, and now I'm going to be on here? I was like, what is up with this? I was like, I don't belong here.
Yeah, you were out kicking the coverage.
For sure, man. Right place, right time. That's what it's all about.
Dude, now look at you. Now look at you, Justin.
I know. Now you've got private invites to Compound Solutions. You've taken over their Instagram chat for like the 15th time in the last week and a half. So, I mean, what does it feel like to be a star, Justin?
I just sometimes I go, man, this must be how Chris feels 24/7. I'm like, this just like butterflies, and this is how you sort of like just walk on air around the room. I was like, this must be Chris Waldrum all day long.
Dude, it's just because I wake up and I have a coffee mug of awesomeness. And when I say awesomeness, it's just 70 proof whiskey. And I start my day.
That's how I'll be finishing our day tomorrow.
Yeah, best foot forward, dude. I know. So what do you got, man? I'm really excited. Robert, you've been doing a lot of stuff, working with a lot of individuals, and it seems like your career has been very much developed. So what do you got going on?
That's the hope of all of this, is to slowly build things up, doing some freelancing, doing some consulting. Formulation and ingredient research is my passion. I've dabbled a little bit in doing some writing, some ebooks and stuff like that. Really, and growing the podcast as much as possible. So it's kind of like a never-ending juggling fest going on with what's due today, what's going to be due tomorrow. Hopefully I don't get a last-minute notification from a client saying, fuck you, we could have given this to you 2 weeks ago, but we need it, by the end of tonight. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, great. So then it's always kind of just doing this number, but it's always good. I enjoy working from home. It is wonderful. And 99.9% of the time, it doesn't really feel like I'm working, but you've got that 0.1% where it's like, oh God, not today. And that was a day like yesterday, but all is bright and sunny down here in Texas again, and life's good.
Nice. I was going to ask maybe for the both of you guys, and I do have a question. Do you ever feel that your clients could exceed what you could deliver, or their expectations exceed what you could deliver, as far as in like a time frame, not necessarily the content you provide, but hey, I need 2 weeks worth of work by tomorrow night, and they think it's possible, but you need to communicate to them that they're out of their mind or something.
I will say this, like from our end, we vet tremendously hard before we sort of get into it. And I would say we spend the whole entire first conversation when we meet someone is we lay out all the expectations beforehand, everything that we do, because it's inevitable that those types of things are going to come up. And it's like, because we don't have like necessarily like deliverables, like in the way like, oh, I'm going to make this design for you, like what you do and stuff like that. Like I'm going to, have this for you on your desk. Like we're just more in an advisory role in a lot of ways. But there's definitely some times when we have to sort of be like, you got to take a step back and just sort of evaluate the situation. But a lot of people, we get into this and people are super passionate and they just want it, you just want them. That's what we spend a lot of times. People are like, okay, I want to make this product and I want to have it to market, and the manufacturer is going to take a couple weeks. Let's get it all done. We're like, oh, hold on, hold on. Like just, so sometimes it's hard to sort of slow people's passions down because there's those steps, that Chris, we've talked about it lots of times. Like, if that was just how it was done, then everybody would crush it at this game. But it's like, there's so many little things where you have to sort of rein people in a little bit, and you feel kind of bad about, slowing their passions down or their momentum. But it's like, you have to make sure things are done correctly, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you, Rob?
It's mine. My experience is a little bit different than Justin's because he's more on the getting brands up and running or helping them scale with that. Mine is more on like the content creation side for the majority of time. I mean, doing a formula that you already know that's going to take 8 to 12 weeks before doing that. But mostly where my headaches come in, and it's rare that it happens, but when it does, man, it is like it sucks. But they'll say you'll get something saying, oh hey, we just got accepted into bodybuilding.com or Muscle and Strength, Tiger Fitness, some internet retailer. And the launch is at the end of the week, and we need product pages for all, and they have to be completely different from all the product pages you've already written for our site, just to not have that SEO complication or whatever. They said, and we need it all in 2 days. And I'm thinking, that's 16, 20 products, and each one of these is like between 500 to 1,500 words. And if I'm in a really good groove, I can do about 1,000 words an hour just writing if I'm in a really good groove. But shit, man, sometimes you just hit brain.
Not me.
Yeah, sometimes you just get like a brain fart, and there comes a point where you can't describe citrulline any other way, and if it's in 4 or 5 of their products, you're just fucked. So
yeah,
it sucks, but I mean, those instances are few and far between. Most of the time, the clients I work with, and I've gotten burned a couple of times in the past, but now I'm at a point where I don't have to just take the lowest hanging fruit always. I've cut back the number of clients I have significantly over the past year or so, and hopefully I'm going to be doing that even more going forward as some other side projects with you gentlemen and a couple of other things might get up and rolling in the future. So that's the goal, is to maybe only have 1 or 2 people that I'm doing some stuff with, and then everything else is devoted into other passion projects or devoting more time to writing for my own site, just because it's when you're writing so much stuff for other people. And Chris, you might run into this yourself, or Justin, you've probably done it. When you're doing deliverables for so many other people, there comes a point where at the end of the day, you just don't even want to look at a computer screen anymore or pull open a study and write for yourself. You have zero motivation, zero desire, or just zero capacity to do anything. It's just, I'm done. I'm ready to crack open my bourbon and just sit and relax. I'm done.
Dude, absolutely. And it sounds like both of you are kind of echoing the same thing. In your own aspects and whatnot like that. But I totally agree with you. And to your end point there, that's kind of the beauty of it. If you apply yourself, eventually you're going to be able to take on the clients that you want. It's like you could build a relationship with the hottest girl in the room or whatever it may be. And now it's on you and nobody else. You know what I mean? So that's awesome. That's a beautiful thing.
Well, I got a question, Chris. Robert and I have talked about this a lot. Since you do a lot of really cool, like, creative stuff, Robert and I talk about like optimizing sort of your day, and one cool thing about like when you work from home or your own boss, you can sort of, there's certain times a day where you're just more creative than other times a day, and you can sort of like schedule around that. Do you have like a routine that you get into that sort of like puts you in that place, or do you just sort of just like wing it?
Man, dude, and I think the most important thing, and this is one thing I wanted to talk about last week, but we kind of got sidetracked with all the other stuff. But I think as humans, without becoming a complete machine, we're used to routine, and routine gives us safety. It gives us confidence, something to be able to rely on it and expect. And it's just like, a dog that always gets food. Like, he has that, the comfort, and that's how that relationship of man and animal is built. Humans are like that, with getting up, expecting the exact same thing. So if you have volatility in your life, dude, cortisol shoots up, testosterone probably plummets, sleep goes down, and that translates to just shitty, work ethic, work activity, and productivity altogether. So yeah, man, without taking like too long, I get up. The first thing I do when I get up, which is usually 6:30 or 7, I have 32 ounces of hot water with lime juice squeezed in it, and that breaks up all the phlegm. It gets your whole circulatory system. Because like when you've been dormant at night and you're just sitting there, your body's obviously getting super dehydrated, but everything comes to a halt. So you need to get that stimulation to be able to get it. So yoga for about 10 minutes, meditation, 32 ounces of water. And then I work for about 2 to 3 hours before actual like physical activity and workout or hiking. So I work out fasted. And dude, sorry, somebody keeps calling this. Could you guys hear that on your side?
Fired.
The phone? Sorry about that. So yeah, I try to do the majority of my work in the morning, and that's like not right when I get up, because I like to clear my conscience and clean my body. But then I get into a fasted 2 hours of solid email design. Like this morning, I worked an hour on design. I came up with 2 cool label layouts. One of the renderings I put on Instagram. And like, you know, you guys are somewhat into intermittent fasting. Whenever your brain's using your ketones more so than any kind of glucose, the cognitive like clearness that I get is superior. After that, a walk with the dogs because the gyms are closed, eat lunch, and then back to sit down for basically the rest of the day. I'll spend another 8 hours on the computer designing or answering emails. So that's it, structure.
In the morning, are you doing any kind of, I know you made the crack earlier about having a giant mug of whiskey right when you wake up and that's what's fueling you in the morning, but are you using any kind of nootropic or actual coffee, or is it purely fast, or is there any kind of productivity supplement caffeine in there anywhere?
Yeah, so coffee, and I mean, I have a pretty robust cup. It's probably about like 16 ounces of coffee. Not black. I'll put xylitol in there, or xylitol, depending on tomato. It's supposed to not mess with your blood sugar, so it's, you know, keto friendly. So I have just some black coffee, xylitol to make it sweet. Sit down, sip that. I drink it hot. I don't really like cold coffee. I like getting up in the morning. The heat just feels like it's breaking up everything inside your body. So definitely caffeine. I think caffeine is a beautiful, whatever, you know, you want to drug, but yeah, used to its benefit, not overdone. It's the best thing out there, you know.
So how are you, you know, because you have Inspired, and obviously super popular brand and stuff like that, and now you're sort of helping other brands. How are you balancing that whole thing? I know, like, because all of us kind of do it in our own ways, and it's like you have your baby, you have this thing, but then you have other people's children now, and you're like, so how do you balance all that craziness?
Man, so this is like our last conversation. Thank you for bringing it up too. You know, in times of adversity like this, you could either be broken down or really help you learn and grow. And this is like the super cliche thing that everybody's talking about now. But I know a lot of people with successful businesses that are depressed, you know, and way more successful than me, that have lost millions of dollars and are really letting them get them down. And maybe it's because I don't really have that much to lose. Like, we have a consolidated team. Everybody grinds. I have a warehouse that I own. So there's a lot of things that I have that other people don't. So it's given me the freedom to be able to explore other opportunities like graphic design, brand development, and marketing. But if I didn't get into this, and if I didn't learn Illustrator and renderings and all that kind of stuff, and only relied on Inspired, then I would be in a downward spiral like everybody else, because you're just focused on what you can't control. And there's so many things we can't control, and people beat themselves up over that. But there's also a huge aspect of everything that we can control. And that's usually stuff that's right in front of us, you know?
Mm-hmm. Do you have tips? Since when people see you, they associate you with Inspired, but you've got all these other talents as well. And if you're looking to explore that and market yourself in those areas, how do you go about doing that? For, you know, what tips would you give people that are looking to maybe branch out into some other avenues as well, to either just pursue a passion project or, you know, add some additional sources of revenue into their lifestyle?
Yeah, that's incredible. So I never thought I'd be able to do something like art or music and make it profitable, or have, you know, make it an actual career. So I kind of looked down on myself in that, like, oh, I'd love to be able to do something like this. You know, in high school, if you went into art in college, you know, most of the time, how are you going to apply that and really make it a fruitful career? But it wasn't until recently that, you know, everything changed, and I had to find another aspect and really look at the avenues in front of you that you already have, and you guys are already doing that right now. Stuff that's right in front of you that you might be looking past otherwise, but then you identify it because you have these times, and you're like, dude, you look around for everything, and learning in life is every day we're like presented opportunities, but we're not able to see the opportunities. So a lot of people will go through their entire life given opportunities, and they fail to see it because they're just looking far beyond at something else instead of like the immediate right in front of them. So yeah, look at what you already have. There's a lot of people that are very talented that they just don't see it in any way that could be lucrative. But there are ways now with like the internet, everything. I mean, if I could do it, anybody could do it. Like, seriously, you know what I mean? So just look at what's directly in front of you. If you have a passion, explore being able to develop it out, because it's pretty easy these days to take knowledge from online like YouTube University or Skillshare or whatever and develop it into something that's lucrative.
Yeah. As I'm going to flip the tables now. Okay, so before we were talking about you as a brand owner, but now you're exploring out opportunities to go and grow yourself and possibly form relationships with somebody else that's actually within the supplement industry, to where you could be doing graphic design for another company. Flip the tables now and say you're in the position of being the brand owner. Somebody else from another brand is exploring their graphic design. Say they are a writer for another brand and they're doing graphic design. How do you view that as, bringing them in on a contract basis to work with that? Do you look at them as a competitor? Do you have any kind of internal conflict that you might be poaching that person from the company or their skills? Are you wary about that, or do you look for people that aren't within the supplement space?
Definitely, dude. Another great question. Kind of like alluded to what we're talking about earlier. So conflict of interest, like that would be the most immediate thing, or intellectual property damage, or siphoning something out like that. So those people, I mean, I don't expect to work with anybody that looks at me that way, and I haven't. A lot of people have seen what I've done and how I'd like to help other people, so it's just flooding in to the point where it's like I'd have to turn people away, and I could really pick the people that I really want to work with, and there's some big ones that I might be able to work with that are going to be awesome. But it's just like, it's dropping the ego and always thinking, because I was like this too, that you have to be the best. You don't always have to be the best, and there is no best. That's completely subjective, and success is subjective to the individual that thinks like, I used to want to be the best at having the best formulations. Now every Joe has the best formulations, or every Justin has the best formulations. So like that becomes so convoluted, because in the whole scheme of things, everybody could have the dopest products. Everybody could have the most stacked brands or anything. So chasing that is just this egocentric ideology. And the people that don't want to work with you, even though you could benefit them, are the egotistical people, because they're just like, my stuff is so cool. How could you benefit it? Or you're going to steal it. And I thought the exact same thing. Like 2018, I was like, everybody's ripping off Inspired and everybody's doing this. And I just sounded like a complete loser, crying about all this dumb shit when yeah, dude, no matter what, you're going to inspire people. No matter what, people are going to take your ideas and hopefully they develop off of it, because the whole thing about art is to be literally inspired by it. Like, dude, that Pantone, the color, the symmetry, that really invigorates me to make something dope. And that's cool. If you could do that, inspire people, awesome. It's just in our industry, it's so easy to get into it that instead of getting inspiration, it's complete like plagiarism,
Right.
And then it's just like plagiarized, but it's like the dumbed down version. And there's like a huge conversation on one of my posts the other day with two brands. I know, you probably know.
Yeah, we know.
Pay attention to anything. I know Justin knows what's going on. But that was it, dude. It's like somebody had a really good idea. So everybody's like, wow, let me take that idea. But they didn't do that idea a service. They did it a disservice by making it worse and just like a complete knockoff, So yeah, dude, let's work with everybody, man. Like, give people knowledge. Like, reciprocation is everything. If you get it out, I used to not want to get out any knowledge because I'm like, it's intellectual property and this is mine. Mm-hmm. But as I've given it out, now it's starting to come back. Now I'm getting business from other people. Now I'm starting to make more money than I have before.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I think that's one thing that I think you and I we've talked about it a lot. But also I think both of us are probably surprised in a lot of ways where you're like, I can do this really cool thing and I can come up with this really cool product. But really, like, what people respond to is like your stories and the way you present yourself and the way you sort of go about your day. Like, most people that I know, like, yeah, like they love the inspired formulas. But like you said, there's a lot of people that make cool stuff. So, but people I know that like live and die by your brand, it's like they love what you do. They love hearing your stories. They love the way you sort of talk about your products like that. Who knew that like that was the secret to the whole entire thing? But it's like when I see people gravitate towards you as you sort of, like you said, instead of being caught up in the whole arguing over who's using more citrulline than the other one, you're missing what's right in front of you. Sort of to go back to what you were saying earlier, you're like, I'm missing literally what makes me unique is right here. And then when all of a sudden you sort of internalize that, you're like, wow, well, this is what people are responding to now. So I think it's super cool.
Dude, the evolution. It's like, and this is what me and Robert were talking about. Like, we are the next foundation that everybody is going to be built off of. All the next generation after 10 years from now, we are going to be building that foundation. And the people like previous to us, it was like the Gasparis. You know what I mean? They were the people with the Halodraw 50, Super Pump 250. Like, they were the ones building that foundation. They never evolved past that. So now they've literally like regressed because they've tried to reinvent themselves with the same old mindset, right? So those those are the old people. But what we're doing right now, and like, being selfless and caring for other people and awareness like that, that's giving other people a foundation to build up off of. So that's why, like, I get so stoked talking to Justin, because he's the same way. He's like, dude, let's build other people up and take down the people that are shitty.
Fully agree, man. One thing Justin and I have talked about this before, and one thing I always like to ask brand owners is, when you're dealing with influencers, how beneficial is that too from a brand? I mean, do you guys, and you don't have to give specific numbers, revenue streams, or costs, whatever you pay them, or whatever they bring into the brand, but do you find that the influencer model is still worthwhile and worthy today, and using them either on social media or having them do videos or shout outs or whatever the fuck influencers do? Are they beneficial?
Yeah, man, and we have a pretty good team, and our payroll for the influencers, it's like an employee payroll basically. Right. And even with all the analytical stuff we have, it's super hard to quantify how and who is making all that money. And you could have things like reversion, and you could have all these links and try to track everything, but it's extremely difficult to really see where the return's coming from. Mm-hmm. And from what I've talked to other people with much bigger brands, it's more so about impressions. So it might not be a conversion directly from that person, from their code, or from whatever link taking them to your site, mm-hmm. but it's the impression. So it depends on their audience, the activity of the audience, interaction, and then that kind of equates to some sort of a return. But it's almost impossible, dude. And a lot of these DTC companies, they have like gigantic teams, dude, and like big individuals, and they probably have 150,000 like per year paid individual that have like $1 million. I can't think of these big brands, but they're in Australia, but they have these robust payrolls. Mm-hmm. So they must have figured something out. But with us, like, we have an awesome team that helps like connect and build other individuals, and then that's kind of been the grassroots stuff. But as far as like being able to say, have it like increased, or is it worth it? It's worth it on a personal level. Mm-hmm. On a monetary level, it's really hard to quantify that. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's well put. That's something I always like to get each brand owner's insight, just because I struggle with it at times. I see how it's beneficial, but I also struggle with it unless they're bringing in a considerable amount of converted sales each month. I would have a hard time just paying them a flat salary and not making it some kind of commission-based system.
Absolutely. Well, it's the same thing with like outside sales reps that mm-hmm. back 10 years ago, your Oprah rep would get $70,000 a year, and they could be sitting in their car just going to each front stop, not making any sales, but they got that 70. So everybody that I've worked with, I've given them a super high commission. I'm like, hey, I might make 5% now selling this, but you're going to make a massive amount of money. So you have some sort of motivation. Instead of just salary people will be complacent regardless. Mm-hmm. You put lower salary, higher commission, now you have that fire.
Agreed. Now, Inspired was Stack 3D's 2019 Brand of the Year.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's
right here.
Yeah, and I would like to get from your side. I mean, obviously you guys released a ton of great products. Formulas are always top notch. What do you credit getting that award and putting you guys over the hump and achieving victory?
Man, yeah. So 2019 was really is extremely aggressive, and everybody brought their A game. I mean, the top five, like you look at the top five, NutraBio, they might have released like ancillary singular products, but they released a shitload of them, and they were really on the flavor launches. So it was extremely competitive. The only thing that I could say that we won is because we were the only brand that was really coming out with like innovation that year, like actual innovation. And this is when we were coming out with the greens, and people were like, well, why are you going to bring in greens? There's nothing cool about a greens. And then we brought out a greens, and people were like, oh, well, this is like a formula. It's not just wheatgrass. It's not just spirulina. Like, this is an intricate formula that tells a story, and that's why people like our stuff too, like more of the supplement nerds, Supplement Snoops out there. It's because it's like, you look at it and it tells a story. It's not just a bunch of cool ingredients put together, everything segmented with their own purpose. So when people look at it, you get this picture. It paints a picture for you. Mm-hmm. So we did that with the Protein Plus, multivitamin, Legend, Greens, FSU, Amino, Worldwide. It was just like, okay. Yeah, that was like our swan song, dude. Just lighting it on fire,
Well, one thing, and I'm glad you said that, because it was like, I think in this sort of day and age, we're inundated with information and advertisements, and we're like, okay, we're just in your face all the time, in your face all the time. And what I thought was really cool about that is, like what you said, now granted, you released a lot of products. Like if you really look at it, there's a lot of new products that you came out with, but several of those other companies released like 1,000 SKUs per, whether it's flavors and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, it wasn't the bombardment of a new flavor, which was all cool, but it was you with the, I would say more targeted approach of bringing something new to the table that ultimately won out. So that's why I was pretty hyped up about it. I liked it.
Yeah, dude, I was surprised, and definitely so. Everybody was very aggressive last year and is extremely competitive, but they were doing everything that's already been done. They might have made their own unique flavors. They might have brought out more SKUs, but they're doing pre-existing things in a mass quantity, and I would rather see just a very innovative, unique to the marketplace formula that you're like, wow, this is dope. And you look at since 2019, we started doing that. How many greens have you seen launched? How many multivitamins do you see? How do you kind of see that impact? And this is just how this industry works, right? If somebody does it and it gets a lot of attention, it's like market research. You're going to put your money where the data tells you and not just continue to do the same old redundant thing. So people are like, dude, greens are cool? Oh, I'm going to make a cool greens. Yeah. And, so I'm not saying that we were the ones that were like causing that, but this is just like the mentality. It's the group mentality of seeing something and then reacting instead of being on the offense. It's always on the defense. You know what I mean? That makes sense. The reactive instead of acting.
I was going to say, I can give a personal touch on that whole thing because as the award season was rolling out in supplements, there was a few places that came out with their, awards, and I was like, and people kept asking me about it. And I was like, look, if Inspired's not on your awards list, I was like, I think your awards are full of shit. And there was a lot of moans and groans and some people sending me messages, screenshots of what other people were saying. And I was like, prove me wrong. I was like, show me somebody else that this brand Inspired shouldn't at least be in the conversation. And it's not a personal thing. Like, yes, Chris and I get along great, but it's like, whether I knew Chris or not, I would be like, look what these guys are doing. And so it was kind of funny to see that whole thing sort of play out. Some people were not. I was like, look, if it's not on your list, I was like, I think your list sucks. I think it's bullshit. So.
Yeah, even that goes to the whole thing. A lot of people in this industry like a company just to be cool or to be accepted, and that's not what this industry is about. It's just about bringing the best product for the customer, what they deserve. And that's like, I go back to NutraBio. It seems like that's what NutraBio does more so than a lot of companies. And even like Morphogen obviously crushes everybody on a lot of different playing fields, but putting out product for the individual and not just to like be cool. And a lot of people are just doing it just to be part of the cool kids and whatnot, or just to support them because they want to be accepted as a cool kids, which were some of the other folks out there. So like, pick me, man. Here you go. I like you. I'm putting you up here. Could I be your friend now and accepted into the group? Could I go to clubs and whatnot? Like, what does it fucking matter? Come on.
Man. Dude, we're definitely talking about that tomorrow night. Definitely talking about. I'm going to write that down.
Chris, since you brought up the greens formula, I want to get your thoughts on a few things. So we'll start off with the, obviously given present circumstances or the current situation of the world, everybody and their grandma, even brands that weren't concerned about health and wellness before or even positioned in that light, they position themselves as either hardcore or bodybuilder or something like that. Everybody and their grandma's either releasing some kind of immune support supplement or greens and reds fruit veggie blend or something like that. What is your opinion on all these companies? Does it seem disingenuous? Are they just trying to capitalize? Is it a little skeezy, used car salesman-ish? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's like, there's two ways that you could look at that. One, they're being reactive, which means that, no, it's not passion. It's just to monetize other people's suffering, which I'm like completely against. I think it's fucking terrible. But at the same time, the other aspect is they're businesses. They're not in business to benefit everybody.
Correct.
They're in business to make money and to be profitable. So I can understand that way. It's unfortunate when they do the whole, the reactive stuff. It's extremely disingenuous. And typically it's all monetary driven, which is what me and Justin were like, dude, that's like the root of all evil. It's not necessarily money's the root of all evil. It's just people's desire and lust to only have money, and that's how they quantify success. That's like the root of all evil. So if you're just being reactive to it, then obviously like it's extremely disingenuous. There's a lot of other brands out there that had badass antioxidant products with high ORAX or whatever the hell you want to say, and these people were just like, dude, you put the steak on the table and the wolves come out, and they just put that pandemic on the table, and then had to come and take advantage of it. So yeah, we were suggested to do something like that too, and it would have been easy because it'd be cheap to make something like that. The cost of goods to do a product like the ones coming out with Epicor and whatnot, it's like super cheap. But now we have our other obligations.
You're saying Epicor as an ingredient is cheap to add into a product?
Yeah, even as like a full ingredient, yeah. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do something dope. I think Alpha Line's one is pretty cool, super simple, and they sell it for a really good price too. That's another thing. Like if you have a dope product and it's actually good, and you don't inflate it, and you're selling it something where somebody can afford it, then awesome. And that's extremely fair.
Yeah, gotcha. Within the greens formula, in the product write-up, you specifically call out no wheatgrass or barley grass. Why? I'm just curious why. What your thoughts are for the ones that you did include in your greens and superfoods formula, and why calling out that you're leaving those two out specifically.
So that's twofold too. So the first main one, when we started doing market research, people with celiac disease would actually complain that some grasses like wheatgrass and barley would mess up their stomach if they're super sensitive to it. So we were looking for something that could be gluten-free and accepted by a lot of individuals. There's a lot of I think Amazing Grass is probably one of the best. It has wheatgrass inside of it, but it's at such a low dose. It's a cheap-ass formula, but it works with a lot of people's GIs. So we wanted to have a very advanced formula, and this is, a gram of ashwagandha, a gram of maca, who puts all this crazy stuff in there?
Yeah.
But we wanted people to be able to ingest and not get sick. It's not going to be the best tasting thing in the world, but we haven't had one complaint like, hey, dude, it messed with my GI, it got me bloated. Everybody says the opposite. They're like, dude, my stomach has never felt better. Bloating's down, regularity goes up. So that's the first one. Second, wheatgrass and barley, people typically just put those in as almost like filler agents. Mm-hmm. So we did the organic TrueServe, which now, some other companies are using, which I found pretty ironic. But wheatgrass and barley, that stuff is super cheap. It's easy to put it in there. Mm-hmm. With TrueServe, it's certified. It has the identity certified. So it's super high quality. It's also extremely expensive, which is one of the most expensive things in there. But it's just like the whole putting arginine into something, it might fill up the net weight, which everybody wants to have a greens with a big scoop.
Right.
But does it do any direct benefit? No.
Did I see that you're doing flavors of the greens?
Yeah, man, dude. So, Stephanie, my lady, actually had a great suggestion. She makes a green shake for her and Dakota every day. And one thing that she puts in there is ginger. And she puts ginger and pineapple, and it completely masks it. Yeah, so I shouldn't be saying this out loud, but we're going to be doing an awesome flavor with those two. And we actually have a pink lemonade flavor that's going to be coming out simultaneously. So those hopefully will be out in 6 to 8 weeks.
Cool. What I was going to ask, it says the flavor is just natural. Can you describe the flavor for the people that have not tasted it yet?
Yeah, so if you've ever had Lo Hangao or monk fruit or stevia, it has stevia is extremely sweet, almost to the point where it's negative. Lo Hangao is more like a xylitol taste, where you could have quite a bit of it, but it's on the back end of the palate, whereas stevia is more of the tip of your tongue and whatnot. Gotcha. So this has the back end super sweetness to it, so it is very sweet. But it also has a chlorella and spirulina, and those are notorious for tasting very swamp watery, mm-hmm. Out of that say it. Yeah, because they're freaking algae. What do you expect? That's what it grows. Right. That's what it grows in.
Right. Yeah, and ashwagandha is going to taste earthy. Maca doesn't really taste all that good either. So and lion's mane, you've got 500 milligrams of lion's mane in there. That's going to be, again, earthy, almost like an uncooked bread dough is the way I kind of describe the way mushroom powders taste, especially something like Pico 2. It's just it's super difficult. So I'm curious to see how if y'all do a pink lemonade or a pineapple ginger combination, because I've tried one other pineapple-ish or pineapple ginger flavored green supplement, and it works really well. You don't really taste the greens at all. So I fully expect it to go well with y'all.
Dude, it's the same thing you do with any other formulas, like the acids or the bitters inside there, being able to balance out that and make it a little bit more pH. Then you could start to flavor it more. And on this one, it's pretty pH. It's just that would have been doing a non-flavor people to put it into our protein shake to mix it with their, other fruits and vegetables and whatnot like that. So there's more of the diversity that you could use it for than starting out with like a chocolate or lemon.
Right. Is there one product from the 2019 onslaught of products y'all released that you're most proud of, or that you take the most pride in, or?
Man, dude, it's like, obviously I'm proud of every single one because I spent so many hours that, like if you look at all the formulas that we launched, especially something like FSU, which might be one of the most intricate ones that I've ever really put together. One, it's really hard to be able to use NO3T just because the patent holder is very particular with who he gets it. So
he doesn't play well with others. We'll say that.
General, yeah, that product in general, it was like an accomplishment for me because one, we're not a huge company, but we could use an ingredient that some other big companies use. So awesome. That means like I put in good footwork, and me and Ron actually became really good friends out of the whole thing. So that was like kind of a cool thing that we established a relationship, and everybody says obviously it's the most difficult relationship to establish, Yep. So awesome. I was really stoked on that. That was set. And then the rest of the formula, like we worked on that formula relentlessly because I wanted to have something with nitrates because I believe nitrates are one of the best. Obviously you could go with cell volumization and different avenues too. Mm-hmm. But just for the experience, I think nitrates are awesome. So we wanted to have nitrates. We want to have something for cell hydration as well too. And a lot of people are just using Hydromax or glycerol monosterate. And we have the alpha glycerol phosphates, which is similar to like a glycerol, but it's connected to a potassium or a magnesium or a calcium. And it's supposedly, there's not really any studies out there. This is just from anecdotal evidence because we tried it quite a bit, like glycerol phosphates compared to Glyceramax and whatnot. And these were just superior to it at lower dosages with lower hydroscopic, or the ability to clump up and whatnot like that. And then the focus aspect of it, man, we came out with that. And there's a really big other pump product out there, sold a ton on the East Coast. I forgot what it's called. It's a white container. But then they came out with a neural version of that one because that was like the next evolution of that. If you just have a pump product, people want to have a little bit more than a pump product. Right. So you need to have something that helps out with mental focus or mood elevation. Yeah. So out of all the formulas, that was one of the more like intricate ones that took quite a while to be able to put together.
Yeah, I would say this too, like, because I get a lot of, we work with a lot of small brands, and people ask me questions, and a lot of times they're like kind of confused. They're like, man, how does, an Inspired or, some of these other companies, it's like every release that they come out with is, it comes out very strong. And I'm like, I'll give a personal story about FSU. I mean, it was, I don't know, it was like a year probably before it came out. And Chris, you were like, hey, can you try this, for me? Like, we're working on this product. It's like, it wasn't, and a lot of times, like, I'll get companies that will say, hey, can we send you a sample of something we're working on? Can we get some feedback? And it's like, I'll get it, and then I'll give them some feedback, and they're like, well, we already put it in production, like, it'll be out next week. And I was like, oh, okay, well, right, I guess you didn't really want to test it. So, but then there's other companies, like Inspired is a good example of, there's a lot going on, but that's expensive and it's time consuming, and it's, it's not sexy to spend tons of time, testing and doing all these other things, or testing out theories that your experience has sort of taught you over time. But it's also why when the end result comes out, it's usually, received very well by people. And it's a lot of people just don't want to put in that type of effort on the back end to sort of, they just want the product out there with the cool label and stuff like that. And then ultimately it falls flat a lot of times because you don't really know until you test it out sometimes what you ultimately have. But I can speak from firsthand experience of how much testing and how much effort Chris puts into the Inspired formulas.
Yeah, dude, just to elaborate on that really quick, like, urgency is extremely important in business, especially being first to the market. But being first to the market doesn't mean shit if it's going to be replaced by somebody doing it superior to you. And it doesn't matter if you're first with a game changer. None of that makes sense. People are going to forget you next day when something comes out better, or it's developed and communicated better. So I always tell people, don't let your self-confidence exceed your urgency. People are overly confident in themselves, so they don't take time to look and say, like, okay, like we always say, vetting yourself, vetting your relationships, everything. Dude, did I check everything off? I have like a standard checklist that I go over everything, not just to see if it's like, if it has a spot in the marketplace or how people are going to receive it. but every aspect of that. And you know how vital that is, dude. The flavoring, the look of it, you know, not just the efficacy, but every little detail of it, dude.
With FSU, Chris, I want to dig a little bit deeper into the formula. So you mentioned that, you know, based on the way the in-house testing y'all did, the glycerophosphates were either as effective or even better than some of the other glycerol supplements on the market, like Hydromax, glycerol monostearate, or Glycericize, Glycerpump, whatever the hell Glycer is calling itself these days. How is it from a cost standpoint? Are those ingredients cost prohibitive, or and how are the glycerophosphate minerals comparatively? Are they super expensive compared to something like a sodium citrate or a potassium citrate?
No, because you'd have to, man, all these ingredients, so anything with unless it's a super exotic version of it, these glycerol phosphates were relatively inexpensive, so they weren't a cost driver. Mm-hmm. So whenever and Justin, I'm sure you do this all the time, whenever you look at a formula, you look at the cost drivers of it, and you're like, dude, do you really need to have 8 grams of citrulline? That's costing me $8 for that one ingredient. Could we cut that back and add in something else? And what I wanted to do, because there's things I wanted in there that I left out, and it was just due to the cost. Mm-hmm. So it was what could you put the meat and potatoes? So we have 4 grams of citrulline, 3 grams of NO3T, and then it was okay, well, that's not enough. You need to spice up the label. So that's when the search for other ingredients that are efficacious and have synergy with these, but aren't a cost driver, come into play. Because now you take something that's dude, people are going to love this and feel it, but if it's naked down here, it just feels like something's missing. So then you start plugging in all these other pieces that are just interesting. And there's, I like to tell a story. So it's not just the efficacy of a product. It's how cool could you make the label without label fluff or pixie dust and anything like that. How cool could you develop out a label without having a $20 cost of goods product, and at the same time deliver it to the individual so they're interested in it.
Well said. With the nootropic blend that you got in there, so you got 2 grams of tyrosine, you got 600 of lion's mane, and 100 milligrams of neurofactor. I love the lineup. I really especially love lion's mane and neurofactor. So often with non-stim pump pre-workouts, especially ones that put a nootropic spin on it, they go the alpha GPC, huperzine, citicoline route. They're going off that acetylcholine pathway. Is there any reason in particular you chose to kind of go a different way from that? Is it just based on personal experience, what ingredients you like, or which ones you find you respond better to in a training session? Give us a little insight on that.
Dude, absolutely. And I'll just be telling you all my secrets here. So it doesn't matter what's on the label necessarily. It matters what the individual feels. And the company that perfected this, but in a dumb way, was Muscle Tech back 15 years ago, because they put Yohimbe in everything. They put Yohimbe in every single product, even if it wasn't a stimulant product. Yep. Because they know, they figured it out. If you feel it, you think it's efficacious, you're dude, it's working. Mm-hmm. So alpha GPC, I love alpha GPC. Choline bitartrate, cytidine, diphosphate choline, all awesome. Even huperzine, great. But there's no direct effect or impact that I feel you get. And it's all completely subjective depending on the individual. Mm-hmm. Everybody that takes 2 grams of tyrosine, dude, I feel it. And you're whoa, man, I can't believe how great I feel. Yeah. Lion's mane, you do not get a direct effect with that. It's more cumulative. You have to take it for a certain amount of time before you start to get the benefits from it. I put that in there specifically because it's cool. So it's not necessarily to have a direct impact that's dude, I feel lion's mane, bro, I'm tripping. No, it's because it's a hot term, or a hot ingredient. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows it. It became a value to the customer. So I put it in for that reason. Neurofactor, I put in there because I feel neurofactor when I take it. Yep. That's one of the only ones. And I talked to a lot of people Chris, don't add it because it's a cost driver, 100 milligrams cost driver. But I felt it so much when I took it with tyrosine that it was this synergy. And there's so many ingredients that we don't even know the mechanisms of how they're synergistic between them. We just don't. There's studies on ingredients, and it's always a singular ingredient. Or sometimes it might be a group of 3 ingredients. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that gives you a fucking pre-workout study. Taking citrulline with beta-alanine, with betaine, with hydromax, with taurine. There's nothing out there like that. And in the future, I'm sure there's going to be. So you have to look for ingredients that, one, are impactful without being disingenuous to the customer. 2, something that they feel boom. Tyrosine isn't a cost driver. You could put 2 grams in there. And at 2 grams, then it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but it adds such a benefit to the experience of the individual that it justified adding that to that. So there's my secrets, man. Now everybody's going to be coming out with Coolest formula.
Yeah, it's something we talk about all the time. And when we're consulting for brands, or when brands will send us, they'll send me something, or they'll send me their formula, and they'll say, "What do you think?" And I'll be like, "Well, I think that you just are sort of copying and pasting, because it's cool to use ingredients that at a certain dosage because this study showed this, but if you, exactly like what Chris was just saying, there's a give and take with everything. There's certain things you have to take into consideration. Is the person going to feel this? Like, first of all, is it going to be effective? Okay, what ingredients in here elicit those effects? Now, okay, cost is a big thing. Like, it's really cool that people want to make these massive monster formulas, but I'll quote something that Prady said the other day on one of our podcasts. He goes, you can come up with the craziest, most insanely loaded formula, but if no one ever hears about it or no one ever gets to use it because you have no distribution, then who gives a fuck like about your formula? And it's like, so getting that whole, and then you make awesome labels, but it's not, there's never anything where you're like, okay, I'm gonna sacrifice the effects, the end result for any of this stuff. It's just, there's this puzzle you're putting together, and that's what the difference is between, you see a lot of brands come in with just the cool things that we talk about, this dosage is supposed to be there in this dosage. You just see the same shit over and over again, and you just get so bored, because you're like, you have no plan with this formula, because you're not taking in the manufacturing process, you're not taking into consideration how you're going to market this product, the distribution, retail, all this other stuff. It's all plays into the cost of the formula, and you just, you kind of get lost. So that's where, you see things like that. And like what Chris is talking about, Robert, we've talked about this when we're helping people put together formulas. It's like, you can't just go with this dose means this and slap it in there. It's just,
yeah,
there's so much more to it than that.
Agreed. And there's one thing I don't think y'all are guilty of doing, Chris, but there is a trend in the industry. Whenever a new ingredient hits the market, I can always count on that between 5 and 10 companies will automatically put that in whatever product they're releasing next.
That's 7.
I didn't want to say that ingredient because I feel like I kick the shit out of that ingredient on a weekly basis. But Citra Peak just came on the market.
We had to get that in there.
Yeah, we do. Chris took care of your paycheck for the week just by not mentioning Morphogen Ben.
Yeah, you mentioned Morphogen, so we got that out of the way.
We're good on that. We don't get any angry responses from Ben over there. But S7, Citra Peak is a new ingredient to the market. I'm sure we've seen it pop up in 1 or 2 products already. I'm sure we're going to see maybe another 5 or 6 people put it in there. What's the burden of proof you need to see before even experimenting or entertaining one of these newfangled compounds that we get inundated with on a weekly or monthly basis?
Man, so just to start off, like whenever these companies come out with these claims, they're just, first of all, the people that they're doing these studies on, if they're untrained, they could do a sit-up and they're going to get pumped like a motherfucker. They could walk around the block and their calorie expenditure is going to go quite. You go to like an Olympic runner, make them run like 20 miles and maybe he breaks a sweat. Yeah. So it's just like the comparison. And when people look at these, and I've been a culprit too, because I see something, I'm like 200-something% increase, like, holy shit, this is the next thing. 50 milligrams, it's like Cialis. No shit, it could do something like Cialis? Like, what? No, that's impossible. There is like no herbal extract. I don't care. Like, it has to be synthesized to get that kind of effect. So you cannot do anything at that low level and really expect that kind of effect. And the same thing with like nitrates. You need to have a certain amount of nitrates and a certain amount of the actual product to be able to get that effect.
Right.
So looking at this stuff, dude, I've become like disheartened, disillusioned, a little bit like upset because I keep going back to the same things like creatine, citrulline, beta-alanine, or stuff like calcium bicarbonate, stuff that could buffer lactic acid, things that have been around for forever. You know what I mean? Those are the things I really put my value in. And like a lot of our formulas, that's why they're just like meat and potatoes now. It doesn't have a lot of novel stuff inside there per se. It's just stuff that I get a direct physiological impact that I feel if it's nootropic or something that has a proven study behind that single ingredient. So like nitrogen, I thought it was a great ingredient. There's a lot of people saying this and that. At the end of the day, like if you take something and you feel it, that's all that fucking matters. It's just if you take that ingredient, it better be by itself when you say you feel it. Because if you take it with like a myriad of other things, like in a slew, you don't know what the hell is doing what. You're just like hoping that whatever receptor, any part of your stomach doesn't kill it, and then you could actually cross the blood-brain barrier and utilize it. But you don't know, you know what I mean? It's like, come on. So I don't know. I think we're in a pretty stagnant point right now. You know what I mean? To be honest with you. What do you think? I mean, what do you see?
I think, well, one thing, Robert and I, we've talked about this a little bit, is where, because you try not to be, so cynical about it, but we've seen, and I don't know if it's maybe just what I've seen, maybe this isn't exactly true, but there's been this just onslaught of, trademarked ingredients and ingredients that just don't really have much behind them, but there's so much money in it for these companies that provide these ingredients and stuff like that. It's like there's this, they're just coming from everywhere at this point. And I try not to be cynical, because I'm like, well, I don't want to turn my nose up at innovation if there's innovation out there, because we have to be open to it. But at the same time, I'm like, the fuck, I can't look at another brand new innovation that's just another fruit extract to increase nitric oxide, or another green leafy vegetable to increase nitric oxide. It's like, okay, it's different, but it's the same. So it's like, okay, what are we doing here? So it's like, I try to be open-minded, but I feel like that's where people are like, well, I can't do anything with the formulas anymore because we're sort of like maxed out, with what we're going to make on each product and stuff. So let's put this little symbol next to this thing we've had for a very long time, and then that'll do it. And it's just kind of like, but then I don't want to miss something that actually is cool that comes along. So it's kind of like I'm beaten down pretty bad with it, but at the same time, you try to be open to it at the same time.
You're like a jaded Hollywood rock star that's like, dude, I've seen it all, man. You know what I mean? Local Wall Street, you've been down that road, so you're like, there's nothing that's going to impress me. And dude, because like, now as we get older, and this is how you should progress, you start thinking more with your heart than just with your head, which you need to have like a combination. It's the duality, the plural of both that you need to do. But now you're thinking about the benefit of people, and not just like, dude, that's super cool. Like all the ATP stuff out there. I was like, dude, awesome. ATP, increasing mitochondrial ATP, that sounds like the dopest thing in the world. If you have something else like creatine, that is like it. I would love to see more cellular power. But is there stuff out there like that? There's claims that these ingredients do it, but completely disingenuous. And then you go to the pharmaceutical aspect, the mentality, coming out with these products, people think they're going to do something, and it's just for profit. And now you're just creating something for profit. So the bad part is the people that are educated are the ones that are pushing this along by like, yeah, I'm using it, yeah. And then it's the herd mentality where like, they're all using it, now I better use it, even though there's substantiated, but they built the freaking logo, and trademarking something doesn't mean jack fucking shit. Doesn't mean anything. I can trademark anything. I can take sand and have trademark silica. And be like, this silica only comes from St. George, Utah, and it has my stamp on it. And if I market it hard enough, you bet your ass everybody's going to be putting that shit inside their product. But it's disingenuous.
Yeah, and that's.
I think, one thing I was going to say too is you get a lot of people. We see these, massive, crazy, insane formulas, and people are like, well, I'm going to stack this, and I'm going to stack this, and I'm going to stack this. And Justin, what do you think about stacking this product, this product, this product? And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, how many fucking things can you feel at one time in your body? Like literally, I was like, you can only feel like two things. So what? I was like, what are we doing here? I was like, so there's sort of like this cycle of, okay, let's see what we can do. It's just like, how far can we push the limits? And then now we're like, well, was that really any better than what we were doing before? And we're like, well, how about let's dial it back a notch and maybe do some cool labels or do some cool marketing or, add some educational content or stuff like that. It's like, because we got there for like 3 times the cost of a formula, but we only got like a negligible amount of results. Because when you ask someone like, well, did you like the pre-work? What'd you think of the pre-workout? You're like, well, yeah, I had fucking energy, man. I was energized. And you're like, yeah, like how many possible things are you trying to feel at one point? Because you can only like handle so much.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's kind of where, just to echo off what both of y'all said. I said every time a new ingredient comes out, I feel like there's the gold rush for that ingredient, throw it in every product, and then I'm the one that's always thinking, let's tap the brakes on this, and then I feel like I need to go and write like a 4,000 or 5,000 word article saying, sure, the studies say this, but here's the population, here's what it's really going to do. It's going to be a marginal effect, and it's probably inconsequential when stacked with other things, and you'll never feel it. So, I mean,
It's like the Buzz Killington of the industry, man.
yeah, and I don't like to be like that, but I feel like things have gone so much the other way in the other direction that people get so they get so excited and their skirts are blown up so high over every new ingredient that comes to market. I feel like I always need to be the one that says, everybody just hold on a second, chill the fuck down, and just take it down a notch.
Take a creatine.
Yeah, take your creatine, because I'm not gonna. I don't need to bring up that it shall who not be named again.
Yeah, dude, but you made a really good point. And it's like you could have, and I'm working with individuals that are like, I want to have the most stacked formula, and I'm like, okay, so and so, what does that mean? Well, I want it to have all this, and I want people to go like, wow, and it's my own customers. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, it's literally like your cost of goods is going to be about $20.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how stacked it is, and it goes to what Brady says. Nobody's going to see that shit. Nobody's going to fucking see it. You might see it. Your grandma might see it. Me, Luke, my dogs might see it. But that's about it. So what good does it really do? And people think the more you put in there, the better it is. And that's completely absurd. One, like your receptors, you don't even know if your receptors are really being able to utilize all this. So when you ingest this stuff, is your body taking apart the formula and be like citrulline, beta-alanine, and everything? No, there's probably some redundancies that block out each other. Right. You know what I mean? And there's and we don't even know how intricate all that is and how much it might even block out. Some of it might even be like toxic. Like we really don't know yet, but we're on the future. And people usually correlate efficacy with the stimulatory effect. And that's why White Cut, our DMHA product, it was probably the best selling pre-workout for the entire year, at least, maybe even like 18 months. And people now are like, that was the best pre-workout I've ever tried. The only reason it was the best pre-workout you ever tried is because I was the first one to put a PEA, in with DMHA. And those two were just like peas and carrots together. There were two drugs, one that gives you this euphoria and other this sharp energy like Adderall. And you put those two together, you work out for hours, but it wasn't necessarily the citrulline or beta-alanine. It's because you were high. And then you could go.
And I never even got to try it.
Justin, you missed out, man. That pre-workout, good God, it was the strongest freaking thing. I mean, you were blitzed out of your mind. I made the mistake of my first time ever trying it, using a full serving, and I thought, well, I mean, I've done Mesomorph, I've done a full serving of Mesomorph, I survived that. This doesn't have DMAA. It can't be any harder hitting than that. Boy, was I wrong. Holy fuck, man! It was I think the scoop of serving of it was something like 17 grams for a full serving. I had to dial it back to like 13 and a half grams. I'd pull out my microdosing scale because if I went up to like 14 or 15, shit, man, it would send me over the rock. I needed like a scoop and a half or a scoop and a third. It was way.
That is just like every word you just said there just like heartbreaking to me. Robert's like, Robert says to me, I'm like, well, did you take a full serving? He's like, well, I don't need a full serving of it. I'm like, that's not what I asked you. I didn't ask you if you needed it. I asked you if you did it or not. But I think and one thing you said too, about I get people asking me questions a lot of we have all these ATP heavy sources and it's kind of a thing, and I'm like, well, I don't have people like, oh, well, what did you what was the experience? I was like, well, I don't have an ATP gauge, a gas gauge on my body where I'm like, oh, there it goes, we're working. I was like, I don't know, man, I had a good workout, what do you want, man? I can't really help you. So it's it's all kind of subjective as when it comes to feel. And then you also, people can say anything, right? On the internet, you can just and then how am I going to prove you wrong? How am I going to prove that, okay, I'd be like, oh, I felt that was the strongest pre-workout I've ever felt in my life. How are you going to prove me wrong? It's I can just say that and you're just going to have to take my word for it. So then we just go round and round and round of things we can't prove to each other, of data that doesn't exist. And at the end of the day, did enough people have access to your product and enjoy it? That's the ultimate. That's all that matters. You know what I mean? We're arguing about all this other shit all the time.
Yeah, no, you two kind of really nail it home when you say the best pre-workout doesn't exist. There's no way that you could really gauge that. or judge it. It's all experience based, depending on the individual and the individual's physiology. So you could get a trillion different effects with people of the same product, and they're going to give you a different kind of review. So, no, you made a really good point there.
Yeah, going back, rewinding for 1 second, Justin, going back to the different trademark plant extracts and pre-workouts. You tried a pre-workout recently with Citrapeak in it. Did you notice anything? Because obviously there's citrulline in there and a bunch of other, cell saturating components in there. Did you notice anything above and beyond what a typical pump pre-workout would give you?
I mean, it was.
Nope.
I'll say I liked it. I mean, like it was what I expected. I guess was my kind of thing. Like, I don't know that. Because it's basically just a flavonoid, right? Like we've used stuff like that, before, and it is good for cardiovascular health. And I think that it does what it says it's going to do, but it wasn't anything like where we go. It's kind of that same thing where it's like, all right, we've got this thing that we know a lot about, that it does good things for your cardiovascular system and stuff like that. And just, putting a trademark on it doesn't change the fact that we've already been using this and we know that it does. It's like if we trademark, some creatine or something like that, it's like, well, it's still creatine. Now, granted, that there might be some more extra security and stuff like that with it, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's like it's still what it is. It's still, we know what it is. It's like when we talk about if we can beat on S7 a little bit more. S7, people are like, oh, does it really increase nitric oxide? And I'm like, hold on, like just stop the entire show. Just stop. Like, look at S7's blend. This is not some like exotic thing that these scientists created in this lab. It's like fucking broccoli and like some blueberry. It's like we know what this stuff is, and you're gonna try and tell me that 4 milligrams of broccoli is gonna increase my nitric oxide like 830%. I'm gonna just common sense. I'm gonna have to say, you know what? I don't believe you, like, because I've eaten I ate a pound of broccoli for dinner last night. I should have technically been dead from low blood pressure.
Dude, I gotta totally touch on that. So maybe we could relate new ingredients to like conspiracies. You want to believe it, and they look super exciting, but it's fucking bullshit, and you need to just right now. Yeah. Like, oh man, this new ingredient. Holy, did you hear what happened? Did you hear about the Rona? Starting in Wuhan? No, it's American. Just shut your fucking mouth. You know what the heck you're talking about. It's great. It's great to like get excited about it. But what happens are people, and like I've been a culprit in the past, they get so invested into it, into the ingredient, into the idea, that they continue to preach it until other people believe them. And then it spreads like a disease. And now you have something that's unsubstantiated, and the cost driver, so you're getting ripped off, that is starting to spread and get credibility that isn't backed by anything,
I'll give you an example. So I was, a company was asking me to help them with their pump product, and they were getting real excited about these cool like trademarked ingredients, and they're like, we're just not getting the results from it that we're expecting. Like, do you have any ideas? Like, have you heard about any new ingredients? And I was like, looking at this, I was like, try throwing some creatine in there. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Like,
no.
Well, right? It was like, they're like, wait, they're like just creatine or like super duper,
the bang super creatine.
Right? And I was like, no. I was like, if you just add some creatine, I was like, I think just, just try it out. And they're like, well, but that's not going to cut it, kind of thing. And I'm just like, it's cool to get like excited about these ingredients, but so that's where it always comes back to the ingredients. We're like, okay, you see the trademark symbol, you see this and that, but then you look at the ingredient, because they have to tell you, eventually you'll find out what the ingredient is. And you're like, okay, but we know about this. This thing's been around since the 60s. And just because that they did this to it now and slapped the trademark symbol doesn't change the fact that we've been using this for this long and we know all about it. So, and then it comes back to like, and then we test it and we use it, and people are like, what'd you think of that new ingredient? And I was like, sorry, it's cool. Just like the other one that I used the other day, and I increased blood flow and energy. I don't know.
Well, we have no way to track it either. And Especially unless they're sending you like a kilogram of the bulk powder for you to try on your own in absence of
Right.
any other kind of NO boosting or cell saturating compound. You have no idea how much it's enhancing or doing anything else like that. So, for instance, the Citrapeak stuff, the ads for it are saying 18% increase in blood flow. So, as just a quick backdrop for the listener, Citrapeak, it's a adulterated, bastardized form of hesperidin. So hesperidin is this flavanol that's in citrus peels and grapefruit and all that stuff. So we've seen previous studies showing that 500 milligrams a day of naringin, there we go, can increase blood flow, improve blood pressure markers, all of that good stuff. It even improves cardiovascular health, cholesterol profile, lipid profile, all that good stuff. The catch with Citrapeak is that it's this adulterated form gives it's more water soluble and it has a higher bioavailability. With that, they started testing a few things, and you can get a smaller dose. So the active effective dose of Citrapeak is between like 150 to 200 milligrams in humans, where you need 500 to maybe a gram of that it's hesperidin, not naringin. Sorry, hesperidin. There we go. Is what Citrapeak is. So the difference between that is, and then so their big study that they've done, because they've got a bunch of cell cultures and mouse studies, and then the one human study that they're basing this 18% blood flow off of is, I think, 10 women. They took their hand, stuck it in cold water, and that's how they measured their blood flow, saying that it's not exercises. They're not doing anything. These people aren't going to do a run. They're not lifting weights. They're not doing anything. They took the Citrapeak, and then they took a placebo, so they didn't even compare it to a regular hesperidin. And they said, all right, well, whose blood flow and temperature dropped the least amount compared to placebo or Citrapeak? And I'm thinking that's fucking useless to a certain extent. I mean, sure, it might increase. So its mechanism of action, it can stimulate enos similar to the actives in Vaso-6 or green tea extract or pomegranate or any other kind of like grape skin extract, and it also inhibits the free radicals similar to what S7 does. So it's a little bit better than S7, but do I think it's superior to something like grapeseed extract or pomegranate extract or something? No.
Buzz Killington in the house.
Yeah. There we go.
Dude, no, you made a completely valid point there. It's like, how are they doing these studies? What's the application? Is it somebody that's, like you said, women that aren't being active at all? And then does that apply in the gym? Putting their hand in cold water, would that just consequently increase the blood flow on its own? It's like there's so many different variables that I need to study. That's like, they put this in my mouth and I got to fucking pump. I mean, just like that. Like our creatine, I took creatine 5 grams a day for X amount of days, and I got this increase in strength. That is completely testable, you know what I mean, and proven. And all these new ingredients, so you're just going back to the whole thing that these are just people that just want to make money, not truly benefit people. And people get excited because it's like, oh, it's sexy. There's something sexy, cool. And if the graphic design is good, they make that little symbol look dope. And you're like, man, I want to put that on your labels. So now you have these labels that are like these, gigantic advertisements for these other companies. I got this. Does that mean your product is good? Does that mean there's like synergy that's applicable inside the gym? Probably not. But just putting that on their product thinks it gives them some sort of credibility, and validation. But yeah.
Now, in Citrapeak's defense, it's cheap. It's not super overpriced or expensive or anything, but it's relatively cheap. I've seen the pricing structures on it, so it's definitely easy to put in there, which is like S7. But I don't know if it's really going to give you much better something than compared to pomegranate, grape skin, or any other kind of polyphenol-rich extract.
Well, that's what we were talking about, because I said the product that it's in is a pretty loaded formula too, and that was like the same kind of thing we were going over when the Mitaburn came out, and that's why I liked that Alpha Lion made a standalone one too, because they put it the Alpha Lion Superhuman Burn is an insane formula, like loaded. And people are like, Justin, what do you think of the new Mitaburn? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's 37 ingredients in that product. Like, I can't tell you like what that one's doing, unless you get to use it, for an extended period of time by itself with, some kind of control where it's like, okay, because I had someone today, they were like, okay, I ordered the Mitaburn, what am I going to feel from it? And I was like, well, okay. I was like, well, what'd you take? And they said, well, I took a couple of this and I took with this fat burner. And I was like, well, then how are you going to know you took it with another product? I was like, you can't do that. So it's like, okay, it's cool that we're going to use this new ingredient, but if you wrap it around 37 other ingredients, like what you're asking me. I use that pre-workout with Citrapeak in it the other day. Did I get a great pump? Yeah, but it's got citrulline, it's got all kinds of other things in it too. It's like, it was a good pre-workout, but I have no idea whether I can't tell you if I got 16% increased blood flow or 18%. I just don't know. I just can't help you.
And this discussion wasn't to knock that pre-workout, or that, if anybody knows which one Justin and I are talking about, it's in no regard knocking that company, that product, and they're not even marketing
it's a good breed.
Yeah, they're not marketing it as we've got Citrapeak, it's going to boost your stuff 230% like everybody that used S7 was. It's not that at all. I'm just trying to give the listeners just some perspective and say, all right, let's tap the brakes. Let's understand what this is doing within the context of the entire formula. This isn't going to be driving that much. It's a nice addition. It's a nice also mention, but it's not the thing that you would build a formula on.
Well, it seems like a lot of it too comes down to, they're like, okay, we're going to take this ingredient and then we're going to make it more bioavailable. Like, that's the big word, where we throw around. And sometimes it seems legitimate, sometimes maybe not. I don't know. But it's like, that seems to be a big driver of what we do with a lot of this stuff, is we're just like, okay, we know that it works, but it has difficulty in the body. So let's make it, more efficient, more than anything.
Yeah. But Chris, what else is cooking for, what'd you say?
No, I totally agree, man. The whole bioavailability has become another hot term, and they're like, do you even know what the fuck that means? Like, just because you have one ingredient, and like, I love estrogen, but does estrogen increase all of the absorptions, or does it take like the most abundant amino acid or molecule and put that in preference over the other stuff so they don't get absorbed? Like having glutamine with other amino acids, and glutamine probably prevents other amino acids from absorbing because it's such a big amino acid. So I say, fuck glutamine, unless you're going to take it with a prebiotic, probiotic, and go that route, great. But yeah, dude, so that becomes a term that is completely overused, but it just sounds super cool. So that's all I say.
No, well put. What else is cooking for Inspired for the rest of 2020?
Dude, so Ember is going to land next week. So we have the new Ember that's going to be landing. And the biggest difference is we took out Yohimbe. And some people like Yohimbe. A lot of the more edgier stimulant, preference type people like Yohimbe. The majority of our audience, and especially that we're going into, they can't stand Yohimbe. They just don't like the effect. And I personally don't either. It makes me feel the cold sweats. I don't really like, anxious. I don't really like to feel that way. Yeah. So we took out Yohimbe, we took out Synephrine, and replaced it with Advantra Z and Justin Hall's favorite ingredient, Kana Ease, which in this application, I think it's incredible. Justin, okay, you're going to need to try it before you knock it. But
what's just happened here?
Tables got turned.
Yeah.
Well, one thing.
Justin tries Kana Ease, and he's like, it just puts me to sleep. Nope, I don't like it.
But okay, no, let's talk, because actually you just touched on a really good point, because now what you're doing is you're taking out the Yohimbe, which is good, because it's like, if I want to use Yohimbe, I'll just get some standalone and I'll add it myself. But now what you're doing is you're sacrificing that feel that people are like, oh, that, man, Chris's new Ember, man, that thing kicks ass. It's like, boy, is it Yohimbe, that you're feeling like you're not feeling the other ingredient. So you're taking a risk, even though you're it's just one ingredient, but now you're like, okay, now I'm going to sacrifice, something like, how many of these Stim Junkie pre-workouts out there are really just alpha yohimbine and a fuck ton of caffeine? It's like, and people are like, oh, I feel it. Well, no shit, you feel it. Like, so you're taking a risk where you're like, okay, I'm going to go with a more, how do you want to say it? A more legitimate approach to trying to get a feel, like, because you still have to get that feel from it, and you're not going, I don't want to say the cheap route, because Yohimbe does what it does, but it's like, it's harder that way. You're taking a harder road to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I get older, and like we always say, as we get older, we hopefully mature and grow. And now I'm making formulas more for the individual that I want to benefit from it, and not just something that I think is cool, which that still plays a big role in it. I want to have fun with it, and I love formulation, and I love making an impact in the industry where people go, oh, I didn't think about that. Let me start using this ingredient. And you go back to 2018 when we launched Ember, because we launched Ember originally in 2015, discontinued it just because there wasn't a big demand for powder burners at the time. Launched in 2018, let it run through. It did okay, but since then, it's kind of become a pretty big market, and there's some big name brands out there that have come out with formulas that are almost identical, And I wonder where they got that idea from. So we wanted to come up with something that was, I call it approachable. I want to make a product that's approachable. I like it to be super intricate for the nerds, but approachable to people that need to have something that doesn't make them feel uncomfortable. So that was looking at everything, taking out the yohimbis, taking out the synephrines, although we do have Adventure Z in there, which is, bitter orange with the mouth, but it's more approachable. Second reason, I could sell international to it. Third reason, we could get it back on Amazon. So it's really just like a strategic thing. Like, how could we get better, dude? I mean, the original Ember tasted okay, but maybe like a 6 out of 10. The new Ember is just as good as our amino acid. Like, it's a solid 9 out of 10. So the flavor, palatability, the overall like consumer experience is going to be increased. And that's what we're really trying to identify. Like, not how intricate or how stacked we can make it, but what's the experience for the end consumer? Like, what do they really get from it? Not just efficacy, but like the enjoyment out of taking it. And that's what drives consumption. When people take something and they enjoy it, not just like stimulant wise, but palatability, flavor, and then the energy, euphoria, or whatever that may be, that's what drives at least our consumer sales. So it was just like, identifying that, diagnosing the issues, and then moving forward with the same mentality in 2019. So Ember, we have a non-stimulant Ember that this is like, I had to put my dick on the table again, like put it on the table. The non-stimulant Ember is like, holy crap, I'm going to be taking this every single day. There's absolutely no redundancies. Everything in there, I just took so long to research to make sure there's good synergy in with it. It tastes good. It looks phenomenal on paper. We're using some ingredients I know you guys really, really like, and a lot of other individuals really like. We have our vegan protein coming out. We have an omega. We're going to do a DHA omega, something that's not fish-based, just for people that have a preference. That DHA, I mean, you need more than DHA because it converts, I think, into EPA than just EPA alone. So if you can't get more DHA, I'm not saying DHEA, then that's good. And the rest of the year, we'll probably be just developing out more flavors, dude. We really like launched so much in 2019 that if I continue to do that, it would just like smash everything down and take the attention off of formulas that are really, really good. Like Legend. We launched Legend in the beginning of 2019, and we sell tons of that. And there's other products that are like not very similar, but in the same category. Mm. And ours sells night and day difference because when people take it, they feel it, they actually get the result from it. And it's an expensive ass formula. Like, we sell it online for $69 and people buy it, but because that shit works. So yeah, dude, just continuing to learn and grow, and then work with other individuals. To be honest with you, that's kind of like my main goal, and the thing that's making me the happiest right now is really connecting to other people and taking their idea, and then it's like taking their idea and putting it all the way through this program like what you're doing, and then they have something that they built. It's like going to college or something. You go through a class, you finally get out of it, you've learned so much, you get the A on the exam, and it's like an accomplishment. So that's like what I like doing with people building companies or developing a label, a logo. It's so fulfilling to me that not like making money now. It's just like what is fulfilling to me. And that's what you guys are doing. It's like, fuck, corporate job, make more money. You're not happy. Doing something you love every single fucking day. Like, I get up, walk around my boxers every day. I had to put on clothes on the conference call. Like, dude, I love my life right now, man. I'm not going to be the richest man in the world, but I am so appreciative, and I'm enjoying the moment so much more. Every single moment I'm enjoying. And that's my goal for 2020, dude. More than launching products, more than anything, Inspired is going to be connected to more people and just like getting that enrichment, involvement with them.
I mean, I would talk to you all day about this, but I feel like I shouldn't ask anything else because that was a pretty fucking good way to, I think, wrap things up, and that was awesome.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out where to go from there, and it's like that's just kind of the cherry on the top. I mean,
he ruined it.
It's yeah, I know. It's if I could extend this conversation just a bit longer. I know it's getting near Justin's nap time, so we'll keep this a little brief. All of us with the current COVID quarantine crisis, pandemic, hysteria, whatever the fuck you want to call it. We are home more than ever. Our spouses are home more with us than ever before. I would venture, and I hope I'm not overstepping boundaries, in saying all three of us are very happy with our significant others and our life setup. Do you find that the increased time together has made things that much better? Do you find it a little bit more stressful? let's go into that side of things. Something completely aside from Or are you taking more theanine, ashwagandha, and Kana-Ease because you're just getting stressed the fuck out being around everybody all the time?
It's a great question. Direct answer. I'm drunk at noon now. No, I'm just kidding. No, dude, no. The crazy part about that too, and this is like a great conversation to have, like domestic violence has gone up. Domestic violence has gone up in cities, And so all that means to me is that people are living with somebody that they don't truly appreciate or care about, or they don't accept themselves. So there's no connectivity between them. And like mostly it's on the masculine side because we're super strong and we're not able to show our emotions. So that creates this conflict and the wall between individuals. And then when you have this kind of situation, which I think this whole thing is like a social experiment, and they're just seeing how far they could push people to the threshold. So you go to the streets and start doing some bad shit. But now we're seeing that, dude. A lot of people aren't happy with the person that they're with, or they can't communicate them. So that creates conflict, dude. And where the hell are you going to go? Like if I lived in Huntington Beach, I couldn't go to the beach. I could go anywhere, to the park. I'd be able to walk to the store and that's it. And I lived in an apartment there. I would be in a really bad spot, dude. Seriously, I'm awesome. I'm like in a really good state of mind because I have a house, because I have a family that I really appreciate. Obviously a community and technology, like that's another thing to talk about. But a lot of people are in a really bad spot because they're not looking at stuff that they already have. I got Justin Hall, I got Robert, and that makes me feel good, so I can rely on these people to feel better. And these other individuals that are like dying, they either don't have that or they don't know how to utilize like what's directly around them.
So, and on a personal note, like with that, I mean, it's got to be cool that, your daughter is so young and now you're not, you have this little bit of time where, you have so much going on like business wise and stuff, but you're able to be there, with her, and you're getting some moments that you would not have, previously had this all sort of, maybe you would be at the warehouse a little bit more, or you'd be at the office a little bit more. It's like, well, okay, I can just stay here, and you kind of capture some things that maybe you would have missed out on.
Dude, absolutely. And this is like a topic we're going to talk about tomorrow, but it's really like understanding and accepting impermanence. And impermanence just is the knowledge that nothing lasts forever. So you're really able to utilize and enjoy every moment to its full capacity. And having a daughter and having a relationship and just being here, the biggest thing I try to focus on is be present and not be tuned out. So when I have an interaction with her, I'm not buzzed off to Inspired or buzzed off to consulting or whatever it may be. It's like looking at each increment piece of time, being able to digest that and then truly appreciate that. So I think people taking this in a positive aspect are able to hopefully live in the moment more and truly appreciate everything that's going on, so definitely. And you seem like you guys are that way. I hope you're that way, but if not.
Yeah, man, I haven't been shy about this. I mean, I've always said I'm married to my best friend. I think it's fantastic, phenomenal. I wouldn't have it any other way. Sandy and I are polar opposites on certain things, her energy level compared to mine. But, on like the core issues, on when you really dial down the specifics at the granular level, we are eye to eye on everything. And it makes, we grew up together. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Man. Yeah. And I think like, it's funny, like every story I do, every podcast I do, every live I do, my wife's always the first person there, watches them all, like just loves everything that I'm doing. And even though we're both only children, she has to share me a lot, with other people, and people are always hitting me up, but it's just the best, man. I mean, being in quarantine actually has been good, man. I mean, I appreciated every single second of it. And I think that's one thing that Chris said, not to get like too deep about it, but I think people ask me a lot of times, they're like, well, when was the mental shift to this appreciating? And I was like, honestly, it sounds morbid, but I was like, once I sort of realized, I was like, man, you're going to die. Like, you only have so much time. So what the fuck am I doing this for? Like wasting, like think about all the people out there, you die rich, you have everything in the world, but what does everyone want? They want more time, right? Yeah. So it's like, well, okay, everyone has this allotted amount of time every day, no matter how much money you make or where you're from. So what are you doing with that 24 hours a day? And sometimes we've all been there where you have to sacrifice maybe some family time or whatever because you have something, but really the goal you have is like, okay, I'm just going to kill this so I can spend more time doing what I really want to do. And there's kind of that balancing act, but you really don't start to appreciate it until you go, holy shit, time is really the most valuable currency there possibly is. And if you, and then you stop wasting it, you're like, holy shit, everything changes. Everything changes when you realize that.
Dude, yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Oh, we lost you.
No pun intended. Oh, you got me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so Alan Watts is just a philosopher that I love him, man. Every time I hear him, he's been dead for years now, but it makes me tear up. But he always talks about time. He always talks about time as the biggest asset that everybody's always trying to buy. Why do you have this high-end job? Well, I want to retire and really, truly live my life. Why are you going to school? Well, I want to have that high-end job so I can retire and really, truly enjoy my life. Now you're 60 years old. You've wasted all your energy. Everything in your body's gone. And now you're at this place where you're not as active. You're not able to do the things that you could do when you're younger because you put all this time invested in that. Well, that's going to be spent, right? And from talking to, because I love talking to everybody, dude. And I get into conversations from war veterans, dude, 90 years old, people, my mom's turning 70, she's going through stuff, and they all have the same thing that is consistent throughout. They wish they had more time. They don't know where their life went. And they all tell me that their mind inside is still like the 15-year-old kid they were, except the body, the avatar, whatever the fuck shell this is, has changed. So if you start looking at everything that is not going to be there and everything dies, everything ends, nothing is forever, then you can really start truly appreciating each one. And that's sounds super hippie, but dude, if you want to love your life, it's not with anything that you can consume, not with anything that you could purchase. It's what you already have and the retrospect and your mindset to be able to appreciate that, Time. Yeah. Bunch of nonsense, dude. I just smoke a lot of weed, guys. I don't know what to say.
Well, and I think that's too, that sort of, I think has that mentality and that thought process has sort of manifested its way into your products, and it's manifested its way into certain things, the way I look at my workouts or the way I look at what I'm eating and all that stuff, man. It's wait a minute, I would rather, supplement or work out or whatever to make sure that I'm as, efficient, with everything is still rolling forward as much as possible for as long as possible, rather than what we were doing when we were younger, when it's well, all I really care about is how much I squat or how much I bench, and, let's get jacked through the roof on God knows what and stuff. And now it's all right, maybe that changes a little bit anyway. Every once in a while it's still cool.
Absolutely. And that's probably why we had the biggest shift in 2019, because it was more about wellness. And now that's become the hot term, right? Health and wellness. And I'm doing all this stuff for my immune system, etc. It's not how hard you crush in the gym. Yeah, you need to go to the gym and it's extremely healthy for you. But that's only one facet. It's the overall things that you do in your daily activities is going to contribute to how you feel 50 years from now. This is all accumulative, man. It all adds up. My mom always tells me this, all the injuries. Everything you do right now is going to come and smack you in the face. It's just like you're writing your book. And the older you get, this book fills up and you're fuck, did I really do all that shit? Or did I not do enough? You know what I mean? And you start second guessing yourself. So, dude, you couldn't be more right, man. We're working out. Obviously, we want to look good for our spouses and our own confidence and our own ego, but we want to feel good. That's the most important thing, dude, to feel good physically and then mentally, because then you could be the individual that other people that depend upon you need, right? That's when you get to become a good spouse, for your wife.
Absolutely, man. Well, gentlemen, this was a blast. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you very much for being so generous with your time. Chris, this is the part where you can shamelessly plug anything and everything and leave us on some really good feel-good vibes, because it seems like every time you end a sentence, it's a 10 out of 10. So roll, man.
Damn, you just shot me down. I'm sorry now. Yeah, so everybody that supported us, man, it sounds super cheesy, but we only exist because of you. I never started out with an investor, and I didn't start out with any knowledge bank that I didn't get from somebody else that didn't believe and invest in time with me. So I end on this. If you have anybody around you that asks you a question, even if you don't want to, spend 30 minutes, spend an hour talking to them, because after that, you might think you're going to feel exhausted, but you're going to feel so fulfilled and appreciative that the person needed you, and that person's going to go walk away feeling like, dude, a million times better. So yeah, invest into other people.
Excellent. And where can everybody find you?
666. Oh, dude, inspirednutra.com. You could also hit up my Instagram, just Chris Waldrum, CHRIS Waldrum. I'd love to work with you guys. So thank you for having this platform, man. I appreciate you. You guys are actually making an impact for the better, not innovation in some bogus side of conspiracy side, but you're actually benefiting people by educating them so they can make a discern and an educated decision. And that's how you change shit, man. So, I appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you, man. We'll catch up tomorrow, man. We'll have another good time in about 24 hours.
I'm telling you, I'm ready.
Awesome, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, and we will be in touch.
Dude, thank you guys so much. Later.